Joseph, the floor is yours.
Hang on, for a
Okay.
few seconds.
Did you say 30 seconds?
All right, you're live.
Okay. All right. So now we move on to Northeast Asia. And thank you, Jean and Michelle, and all the other organizers of this event. Through the good planning of World Beyond War, we are all learning about how our struggles for peace are intertwined. And yes, as Cora said, this event will allow us to show our connectedness. I totally agree about that. My name is Joseph SRTA. You can just remember 4 letters, SRTA. It kind of helps you to pronounce it, or you can say SRTIer, the anglicized version of my name. Um, I am the coordinator of the Japan chapter of World Beyond War, and I have been working for peace for about 25 years, and I have been with World Beyond War for almost a decade. Most of my work as an activist during this period has been opposing the construction of 2 new U.S. military bases in Okinawa. So I will talk more about that later. Um, but let's see, as for what we are going to cover for the Japan segment of Northeast Asia, which will be the first segment, the second segment will be from Korea. Um, we are going to show you a video from Gensui Kyo, which is the largest organization in Japan uh, working to abolish nuclear weapons. They have been active ever since, um, I don't know the exact year, but they have been active for most of the last 80 years. This year is the 80th anniversary of the war, as you know, the war that ended in 1945. And Gensui Kyo has done a lot of great work protecting, um, standing up for the rights of the survivors, called the Hibakusha in Japan. And they do a peace march every year. Recently, they stood up for Iran and for all of us to oppose a war with Iran, which could lead to a nuclear war. And um, uh, so they've done a lot of great work, and we're going to see a video from them first. Then I will talk about the activities of the Japan chapter of World Beyond War and other um, peace work here in Nagoya, which I'm in Nagoya, Japan, which is between Kyoto and Tokyo. So we're right in the center of the country, and we are the fourth largest city in Japan. But Jean, would you like to play yeah, and then I should say at the end we'll have a Q&A session, and um, yeah, and then after that it'll move on to talk to some people in South Korea. So, Jean, would you mind playing the Gensui Kyo video?
All right, a moment, please.
Hello, friends. Thank you for participating in the 24-hour peace wave for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW. My name is Yayoi Tsuchida, Assistant General Secretary of Japan Council Against Atomic and Hydrogen Bombs, Gensui-kyo. In the wake of suffering of the Japanese fishing boats and their crew members from the U.S. H-bomb Bravo test conducted at Marshall Island in the Pacific in 1954, the Japanese people spontaneously stood against A&H bombs and collected more than 3 million signatures for the prohibition of A&H bombs in a short period. This people's surge led to the holding of the First World Conference against A&H bombs in 1955. Since then, the conference is held every August in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, upholding the 3 goals of prevention of nuclear war, the elimination of nuclear weapons, and relief for and solidarity with the Hibakusha A-bomb survivors. From such people's movement, our organization was founded in 1955, Nihon Hidankyo, the Japan Confederation of A&H bomb sufferers organizations, that was awarded Nobel Peace Prize last year, 2024, was also established in 1956. Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons was adopted in the UN on July 7, 2017. It entered into force on January 22, 2021. It is the first treaty in human history to ban all activities of nuclear weapons. Now the treaty is developing with 94 signatories and 73 ratifying countries. At last year's General Assembly of the United Nations, the resolution to promote the TPNW got support from 127 countries, which accounts for 2/3 of the UN member states. In spite of such developments, the world is faced with ongoing war and mass killing of people in Ukraine and Gaza, conflicts between Israel and Iran, etc. The danger of use of nuclear weapons is increasing. Now it is said that humanity is faced with the brink of nuclear war. In such a dangerous situation, TPNW has been developing as a beacon of hope for achieving a peaceful world without nuclear weapons, overcoming the outrages of nuclear powers and restoring the international rule of peace based on the UN Charter. In Japan, we are carrying on the campaign to make Japan join the TPNW. We are ashamed of the Japanese government opposing the treaty, in spite of the only A-bombed country in the world to have suffered from the atomic bombings during wartime. Under the US nuclear umbrella, it has a hand in the US nuclear strategy and has tried to turn Japan to a war-fighting country in violation of the Constitution. I think that if Japan joins the treaty, it will bring not only great advance to the elimination of nuclear weapons in the world, but a shift in Japan's security policy, which will contribute to creating a peaceful and nuclear weapon-free East Asia. Please take similar actions in your country to make your government join the treaty. We will send Hibakusha their testimonies and A-bomb photos so that you can use them for your actions. On this occasion, I will show the videos of our action. First one is about our activities in Oslo in December 2024, at the time of Nobel Peace Prize being awarded to Nihon Hidankyo. About 31 Hibakusha of the official delegation of Nihon Hidankyo, and in addition, about 50 Hibakusha and second and third generations of Hibakusha and peace activists of Genshikyo went to Oslo to witness such historical event. The three representative directors of Nihon Hidankyo, Mr. Terumi Tanaka, Mr. Tomoyuki Mimaki, and Mr. Shigemitsu Tanaka represented Hidankyo. They brought with them the pictures of all Hibakusha that had died halfway through their struggle for compensation and the elimination of nuclear weapons. Please look at the video of them in Oslo. During the ceremony, we, together with the citizens of Oslo and other parts of the world, walked in the march, calling for no more Hiroshimas, no more Nagasakis, and no more war, and no more Hibakusha.
そして核兵器も戦争もない世界の人間社会を求めて共に頑張りましょう。ありがとうございました。そして核兵器も戦争もない世界の人間社会を求めて共に頑張りましょう。ありがとうございました。
second video is about our street action conducted in front of the US Embassy in Tokyo to condemn the US attack on Iran. As soon as we heard this bad news, we went to the US Embassy to protest Trump's atrocity. It is humiliating that the US Embassy is protected by the Japanese police. We cannot go closer to the embassy.
アメリカは国連憲章と国際法を守れ。アメリカは国連憲章と国際法を守れ。ノーウォー、ノーウォー、ノーウォー、ノーウォー。Don't attack Iran. Don't attack Iran.
Third, we organized nationwide action across the country on July 7th in commemoration of the adoption of the TPNW in the United Nations. These actions were carried out in 26 prefectures. Next video is about National Peace March. The National Peace March started on May 6th from Tokyo Umenoshima, where there is the museum of the tuna fishing boat named the Fifth Lucky Dragon, which was exposed to followers of the US H-bomb Bravo test. Calling for the elimination of nuclear weapons, it is going through all prefectures of Japan and will reach Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August the 4th. Usually 100,000 people walk in the march every year. Every year we have young overseas marchers from abroad. This year, several young people from the Philippines will walk.
被爆者の皆さんの願いは、自分たちが命あるうちに核兵器のないその地球を終わりたい。そして核兵器がない世界を子供たちに手渡したい。もうこの地球には核兵器はないんだよ。二度とあの恐ろしい爆弾が使われることはないんだと子供たちに言ってあげたい。孫たちに伝えたい。けれどもそのための時間というのは決して長くは残されていないんです。被爆者の皆さんの願いを叶えるために、ぜひ皆さんも一歩でも二歩でもこの平和行進、被爆者の皆さんと共に一緒に歩きませんか。そして広島長崎を経験している唯一の戦争被爆国でありながら核兵器禁止条約に手を向け続けている私たちの日本政府に、被爆者の皆さんと共に一日も早く核兵器禁止条約を批准し、そして核兵器のない世界に向けたその先頭に立って行動をしてほしい。そのことを一緒に声を上げていきましょう。
愛知平和行進です。愛知平和行進です。核兵器をなくそう。核兵器をなくそう。みんなの生活を守ろう。みんなの生活を守ろう。核兵器をなくせ。
核兵器をなくせ。
人類から核兵器を一掃しよう。
人類から核兵器を一掃しよ
う。みんなの平和を守ろ
う。みんなの平和を。
長崎目指して平和行進。はい。長崎目指して平和行進。一歩から始まる平和行進。はい。一歩から始まる平和行進。はい。それそれそれそれ平和行進。はい。それそれそれそれ平和行進。はい。元気出して元気出して平和行進。はい。元気出して元気出して平和行進。はい。核兵器いらない平和行進。
戦闘準備と一体のものです。敵の基地を攻撃能力に加え、先制攻撃さえしかるなく東京で日本を準備をしています。
Next, I want to introduce to you our nuclear-free Japan campaign, which, as already mentioned, is the campaign to make Japanese government to join the TPNW. Three main actions of the campaign is to raise public awareness about the real damage of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki through A-bomb photo exhibitions and testimonies of the Hibakusha. This activity is to raise public awareness about inhumanity of nuclear weapons and need to abolish them. Second pillar of action is to collect signatures from the public to urge the Japanese government to join the TPNW. So far, we have collected about 3 million signatures, and we have submitted these signatures to the Foreign Ministry of Japan. The last main activity is to work on local government to adopt resolutions or opinion notes to urge the Japanese government to join the treaty. The local governments which had adopted such resolutions exceeded 40% of all municipalities in Japan. In August, we will hold the World Conference Against A&H Bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August the 3rd to the 9th. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombings. The earnest desire of Hibakusha is to get nuclear weapons eliminated in their lifetime. We want to make this year's conference successful to make it a springboard for achieving a peaceful world without nuclear weapons. I will show you some clips of videos of last year's conference, including Hibakusha's testimony and its finale with many overseas delegates. If you are interested in joining the conference, please contact me. Let's work together to achieve a nuclear weapon-free, peaceful world. Thank you very much.
私は、広島県原爆被害者団体協議会理事長の佐久間邦彦と申します。私は、1945年8月6日、生後9ヶ月の時、爆心地から西方3キロあります小井町で被爆しました。被爆時、自宅にいたのは母と私の2人だけでした。父は爆心地から南西 4km の職場で被爆し、祖母と姉2人は山口県田布施町に遠行疎開をしていたので無事でした。被爆時のことは1957年、昭和32年、原爆医療法が制定され、被爆者手帳の申請を綴るときに、母から被爆時の様子を聞きました。私の家族は6人、祖母と両親と姉2人、そして私です。被爆時自宅にいたのは私と母です。原爆が投下され、母は私を背負って自宅から避難する途中、黒い雨に遭いました。私は幼い頃から病弱で、16歳頃までよく病院へ通っていました。
どうぞ。We shall overcome. We shall overcome. 海外代表の皆さん、ありがとうございました。 overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. We shall overcome. One more time. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday.
And that's it for the video.
Okay, so, all right. Thank you, Yayoi Tsuchida. It is great to see that Gensui Kyo is going strong. Your large nationwide organization is having a big impact on Japan, and your openness to people from any place in the world, to people of all faiths, and your resistance to discrimination is precious. In fact, discrimination, Gensui Kyo has fought against discrimination against the hibakusha. It's so great to see. Also, I was impressed with the video about Hidankyo and the hibakusha winning. Yeah, we can win sometimes. It brought tears to my eyes when I heard that Hidankyo had won the Nobel Peace Prize. Hibakusha are working to abolish nuclear weapons, and World Beyond War is working to abolish war. Both movements are important for decent future human survival. So let's work together to lay the groundwork for human survival and also for human thriving and human happiness. Okay, before I go on to my own chapter's activities, shall we play the video that we prepared? Gene?
All right, moment please.
Okay.
「お膳立てしてる」「でもイスラエルとの事業連携だけはやめてほしいのよ」「イスラエルイノベーション庁との協定破棄してほしいのよ」「これ誰が決めたの？誰が決めたの？どうやって決めたの？ちゃんと話し合ったの？
Okay. So you're gonna give me a little time between each segment. Good. Yeah, this group I thought is great. They've got a lot of really exciting material, and they've been just appearing on the streets uh, regularly. And yeah, they're really inspiring people, young people, to stand up for the rights of Palestinians, which, as you know, is also directly related to the nuclear war, the issue of nuclear war, because Israel is a nuclear power, and we don't want to get into, we don't want nuclear powers to fight against each other. Okay, Jean, let's see, the next one is what?
My name's Chris Vaughan. I am in Nagoya, where I'm also involved in some of the Palestinian solidarity activities. But yeah, on the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, I think there's the image of Japan as being generally a very anti-nuclear country, and indeed many of the people are heavily involved in the campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. There's a general anti-war sentiment, but unfortunately, the government, through its very strong connections with America, through its U.S. bases, through its military ties, it does not actually meet the needs of what Japan actually wants in terms of being involved in proper nuclear proliferation, and in particular through its connections with the U.S. I think we still have a lot of war struggles and fights to do in order to really actually work towards a world without nuclear weapons.
Thank you, Jean. So, as you can see, that it was kind of hard to see in this video, which I took, but the women who are dressed as Muslims, because they are Muslims, they were carrying these white bundles, and there was red paint on them, symbolizing the babies who've died in Gaza, and the babies who've been killed by Israel in Gaza. And so we were walking, we've been doing this recently, walking for about an hour through this very busy shopping area, and it's like parting the Red Sea. Everybody moves aside, and they're like, "Whoa, what is this?" So it seems to be a pretty effective approach to consciousness raising about what's happening in Gaza. Okay, and as you can see, one of those people, one of the participants was Chris from Australia, and I think he summarized, yeah, the problem in Japan. The majority of the population is very pro-peace. They've really defended the peace constitution, but unfortunately, the government keeps getting pushed farther and farther to the right, or farther and farther towards war. And yeah, it's a really difficult situation. So can you play, let's see, the next one will be about, it'll be a woman singing. She's from Okinawa, and this is a song that is often sung. I thought she had a lot of courage to stand on the street. Yeah, and sing this song, which was very Okay, thank you. So, that's a video is pretty self-explanatory. Jean, can you play the next one, the long speech? It's about a 5-minute speech from Kanbei-san, who used to be he filled in for me when I was not able to be the chapter coordinator for about half a year. So let's listen to his speech, which I think explains the situation in China, situation about the chance of a war between China and the United States and how it could affect Okinawans, who are some of the most peace-loving people in the world.
沖縄の南西諸島の島々、宮古島、石垣島、奄美大島、与那国島、そこにここ数年の間に自衛隊のミサイル基地がどんどん作られています。そのミサイル基地を作るときに自衛隊、防衛省は何と言ったかというと、島を守るためだ、島を守るために基地を置きますと、ね、基地を置いたら安心ですよと言ってミサイル基地を作りました。ところが基地ができると今度は攻撃されるかもしれない、ミサイル基地だからね、攻撃されるか、ミサイルで攻撃されるかもしれない。だから避難訓練をしましょうって言い出したんですね。避難訓練、地震や津波の避難訓練じゃないですよ。ミサイル攻撃の避難訓練をすでに与那国や石垣やそして那覇でもやっています。なんでそういう訓練をしなきゃいけないんだ。誰がそういう戦争が起こる、そういう危険な状況を作ってるのか。それは日本政府が作ってるんですよ。そりゃそうですよね。南西諸島の島々にミサイル基地を作って、そして今そこにですね、射程が1000キロ、1500キロの中国本土まで届くミサイルを配備しようとしてるんです。当然その相手から見ればこれはとても脅威ですよね。日本政府はこれを抑止力って言ってます。抑止力を高めれば戦争は起こらない、そう言ってます。でも抑止力っていうのは相手を脅すということです。お前もし攻撃したらこんだけ俺たちは武器持ってるからひどい目に遭わせるからなって言って脅してるわけですよ。こんなことで戦争が起きなくなるわけないじゃないですか。逆ですよね。今日本とアメリカは毎年ですね、合同軍事訓練をやっています。しかも1年間に何回もやっています。1回の訓練に何万人もの自衛隊、アメリカ兵が参加しています。この日米合同軍事演習、このニュースはほとんど流れません。テレビでも新聞でも報道されていません。しかし毎年やっています。何回も。これですね、例えば中国の人たちはどう思いますかね。自分のところの近くで大規模な軍事訓練をやる、しょっちゅうやっている。これはちょっと危ないんじゃないかと思うに決まってるじゃないですか。そしてたまに中国がですね、台湾のいろんなそういう独立っぽい言動に対して演習しますよね、大規模演習を。それはね、ちゃんと日本のマスコミは伝えるんですよ。中国はこんなすごい演習をしていると、危ないんだと、そう言ってね、そういうニュースを流しています。日本とアメリカが演習してあるニュースは流していないんです。これはね、結局私たち日本に住む人たちにとって中国は危ないんだと、そういうメッセージを与えている、意図的に与えている。でも実はそうじゃないんです。そういうことをやはり知ってほしいと、そういうふうに思います。戦争、中国が攻めてくるならやってやるんじゃないかっていう人はいっぱいいると思うんですね。中国が攻めてくるんだったらうちらはちゃんと武器もいっぱい用意してお前やったるわっていう人はいっぱいいると思いますけど、もし戦争になったらそんなもんじゃ済まないですからね。日本と中国でどれぐらいそういう武力の違いがあるかってご存知ですかね。中国は日本を攻撃できるミサイルを何千発も持ってるんですよ。もし日本がそういう武器を見せたら日本中攻撃されます。そうならないためには日本がそういうアメリカと一緒になって挑発をしないということです。そして台湾有事は言われてますけど、仮に 台湾有事が起こった時に、じゃあ台湾を守るために日本の自衛隊がアメリカと一緒になって中国と戦争するのか。でも実際今日本政府がやってることはまさにそのことをやってますよね。でも私たち選挙で、今選挙真っ最中ですけど、選挙で自民党がそういうことを私たち国民にこうしますよということを言ったことは一度もありませんね。選挙でちゃんと分かりましたと、私たちもじゃあそれを支持しますということになってないんですよ。なってないのに勝手にそういうことをアメリカと取り決めてやろうとして、だからやはりこれはですね、こういう日本政府のやり方を止めなくてはいけない。そして戦争になったら死ぬのは私たちです。政治家はなかなか死なないですね、逃げるから。死ぬのは私たちです。それはウクライナやガザを見れば分かるでしょ、ね、一般市民が殺されるんですよ、戦争になったら。だから絶対戦争は起こしちゃいけない、そういうふうに皆さん思ってください。命は一つ、人生は一回だから、命を捨てないようにね。慌てるとついふらふらとお国のためだと言われるとね、青くなってしごみなさい、逃げなさい、隠れなさい。僕には俺たち死んだとね、ずっと後まで残りますよね。失礼しましたね、思わぬだけ命のスペアはありませんよ。青くなってしごみなさい、逃げなさい、隠れなさい。命を捨てて男になれと言われた時には震えましょうよね。そうよ私。
Sorry, did I stop that? uh, uh, can you all hear me? You can hear me? Okay. So, well, we were going to stop anyway. It was almost over. Let's see. I was going to talk a little bit about Okinawa and about what's happening with Korea. Probably the most important thing, besides the sexual assaults getting worse in Okinawa, is that there's going to be a People's Tribunal in New York next year in November. They're going to demand that the US government apologize to the survivors and apologize for bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But you're going to hear more about that in the Korea segment. And it looks like we don't have much time left. So I'd like to give people a little time for Q&A. They'd like to ask about what's happening in Japan, or if you want to share any information about Japan-related struggles for peace, anything like that. Yeah, you're going to hear about the People's Tribunal. Okay, if no questions? If there are no questions, then I'll continue with my boring speech. Okay, I don't see any questions. I don't know how to, oh, I see, there's a person. Okay, Norbert?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello. Very, very briefly, thank you for this great segment.
I just posted some links regarding Better World info in the chat. We are very interested in connecting with you guys in Japan and around for collaboration. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you. Okay. At Thank you very much. betterworld.info. Okay, can you put your email address in the chat? Yeah, it's
Mine
on the
is
website, of course, as well, but I will.
great. And my email address is japan@worldbeyondwar.org.
Can you type that too?
Real simple. Real simple. Japan. Okay. At I don't know if it has to be in all lowercase. WorldBeyondWar.org. Okay. Any other questions? I have a boring speech that I can give if there are no questions. Okay. In that case, let's see. Just to give you a little background about, yeah, if you, I'm thinking really today about Okinawa, but Korea and Taiwan and the Philippines are in similar situations, squeezed between China and Japan, and um, so let's just think about what is Okinawa, what's the relationship with Taiwan and sorry, with Japan. In 1879, the Empire of Japan annexed Okinawa. In 1894, they attacked China and stole Taiwan. That was the first Sino-Japanese War. In 1904, they attacked Russia and took control of Korea. In 1905, they signed a secret Taft-Katsura Agreement, which said that Japan would not stop the U.S. from controlling the Philippines, and the U.S. would not stop Japan from controlling Korea. So uh, America was cooperating already at that point with the Empire of Japan. And I think the Korean people should be very aware of that. Of course, they probably are. They know their history better than, of course, they know the history of the Empire of Japan far better than people in this country do, or of course, the Americans. In 1910, the Empire of Japan annexed the Korean Peninsula. And in the post-war period, Koreans and Okinawans were supposed to be liberated, but they were dominated and they were used by the United States. Neither country, I think neither South Korea nor Japan are truly sovereign states, unlike North Korea. And no matter whatever you might say about the government of North Korea and how democratic it is, you have to admit that they are sovereign. They don't have any U.S. military bases on their, and they don't have any foreign military bases on their land. So that's a little about, okay, then, as you know, Japan returned Okinawa to Japan, even though Okinawa was originally a kingdom up until the late 19th century. And after 1972, there have been over 100 rape cases reported to the police there, and that seemed to be getting better for a while, but recently there have been even more incidents of sexual violence committed by U.S. military personnel. And as you know, PTSD can be among victims of sexual violence suffer PTSD in the same way that soldiers suffer PTSD. And in fact, the severity of the PTSD can be equally as bad. But our government, the United States, has shown very little sympathy for the women and children of Okinawa. And the only reason why they don't have free reign is because the people of Okinawa stand up. They are peace-loving people, and they have a very strong peace movement. They're also trying to defend the coral reefs, which will probably be the first
um, what do you call it? Um, an ecosystem, an entire ecosystem that goes extinct on our planet. But the people of Okinawa are fighting very hard to protect the coral reefs, the habitat of the dugong, which is a marine mammal, is very important to them because the dugong are they're an important part of their cultural heritage. Um, so let's see. Any
Joseph, I think
okay.
before we move on to Korea, I think
Uh-huh.
we have one question in the chat box. If you would like to address that before we pass the wave to Korea.
Okay. Where's the question?
The question from Miss DJ from Stop the War Coalition. What is the general sentiment of the public and politician about the issue of nuclear weapons and military bases of the US?
Good question. Um, most of the slightly more than half of the population is in favor of maintaining the peace constitution. And so the peace constitution, if you're going to maintain the peace constitution, then you've got to reject the militarization of Japan and the military bases of the United States, just like the military bases of the so-called self-defense forces, are um, they contradict the peace clause. It's called Article 9 in the Constitution of Japan. So, and most people are in favor of defending that Article 9. On the other hand, people are very afraid of China and North Korea and even Russia. And so a lot of people, I think the sentiment in Japan is, if anything, to be honest, it's going in the direction of more and greater acceptance that Japan is going to have a regular military. Japan is going to, in fact, one of the speeches I wanted to play, Chinen, the woman, the Okinawan woman, she, in her speech, she talked about that. Um, yeah. But and also you saw how Chris also talked about how the general sentiment in Japan is pro-peace. But Japan is militarizing very quickly. There are at least 4 islands that, as you saw in the video, Kanbei mentioned how those islands are being militarized. There are all kinds of installations and bases that are being built by the government of Japan. That's been happening in the last several years, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse. And the majority of the population is very apathetic. That's the reality. And unfortunately, history education is not very good in this country. So uh, sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle, but so be it. I'd rather go down fighting for peace.
Thank you, Joseph, for that. And thank you for preparing the Japan segment. We appreciate all the hard work for this part. And I think it's time to pass the peace wave to Korea. And I think Kaya is ready to take over. Kaya, the floor is yours.
Hello. I am joined here today in Korea by 2 representatives from SPARC, Solidarity for Peace and Reunification of Korea. And so maybe I will introduce them soon. But first, I'll just maybe overview our planned schedule for this next hour. We have a 20-minute video prepared by Spark, and then we'll have some time for question and answer about the contents of the video, and that will be with Kyun Lee from Spark, and then I will give a presentation to share some more about different kinds of peace movements and peace activism in South Korea, and have another time that we can have some question or discussion time at the end. I know today Oheran is not planning to give a speech anymore, but would you like to briefly say hi?
Hello, everyone. This is Herano. I am Executive Director of SPARK, Solidarity and Reunification of Korea.
Thank you for joining us today and for helping to prepare for this segment of the Peace Wave. So we'll have more time for questions and answer together with Gi-hoon after seeing a 20-minute video. I think Jean maybe has that ready to share.
Shall we play it now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, give a few moments.
From 1910 to 1945, Japan illegally colonized Korea, usurping its sovereignty and forcibly mobilizing approximately 800,000 Koreans to Japan. In 1945, the United States dropped A-bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As a result, approximately 70,000 to 100,000 Koreans were exposed to radiation, and about 50,000 of them died. Many of the victims were conscripted laborers who had been forcibly mobilized by the Japanese Empire. Without receiving proper medical treatment, Korean A-bomb survivors were forced to return to their homeland early under the US-led General Headquarters or GHQ's repatriation policy of Koreans from Japan. However, they faced neglect from the South Korean government, social coldness, and poverty. Korean A-bomb victims are those who have borne the cross of the nuclear age, enduring the triple suffering of Japan's forced mobilization, the US atomic bombings, and neglect by the South Korean government. Following the conclusion of the Treaty on Basic Relations between Japan and the Republic of Korea in 1965, survivors established the Korea Atomic Bomb Victims Association in 1967 and began to speak out. On November 4, 1967, approximately 20 Korean victims protested in front of the Japanese embassy, holding a banner that read, "Demand reparation for my body." On August 6, 1971, approximately 10 Korean victims protested in front of the U.S. Embassy in Seoul, shouting, "The U.S. government should provide reparations to Korean A-bomb victims." On June 11, 1990, Lee Meng-hee, an A-bomb victim, attempted suicide by ingesting poison in front of the Japanese embassy. Inspired by this incident, Kim Hak-soon publicly disclosed on August 14, 1991, that she had been a victim of sexual slavery by the Japanese military, thereby bringing global attention of the issue of comfort woman.
이번 제국주의 침략 전쟁에 의해 지금 이 시간까지도 그 광기의 역사가 한국 원법 위생 환우들의 몸과 마음을 관통하고 있는 현실에 인식해야 한다고 생각합니다.
On March 22, 2002, Kim Hyung-yul, a second-generation A-bomb survivor, held a press conference that brought the issues faced by second-generation A-bomb survivors to public attention. On April 22, 2015, Solidarity for Peace and Reunification of Korea, or SPARC, and People's Solidarity for Participatory Democracy, PSPD, visited the U.S. Department of State and demanded accountability for the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. However, the U.S. refused to acknowledge the demand. On May 1, 2015, victims Shin Jin-tae and Kim Bong-dae, the father of Kim Hyung-yul, raised the issue of Korean A-bomb victims at the United Nations for the first time and called for the accountability from the U.S. for the original sin of conducting the bombings.
우리들은 미국이 더 늦기 전에 하루라도 속히 피해자에 대한 사죄를 요구합니다.
On the day President Obama visited Japan in May 2016, Korean A-bomb victims and their second-generation descendants also visited Hiroshima to demand acknowledgement of Korean A-bomb victims, as well as apologies and reparations from the U.S. During his visit to Japan on May 26, 2016, for the first time in history, President Obama acknowledged the existence of Korean victims by the U.S. atomic bombings, citing thousands of Koreans among the victims. On May 29, 2016, the National Assembly enacted a special law to support A-bomb victims, 71 years after the A-bombings. However, the law did not address support for second generation and other descendants. On June 28, 2019, upon the U.S. President Trump's visit to South Korea, about 250 victims held a press conference and marched around the U.S. Embassy. They called for accountability from the U.S. for orchestrating the bombings and demanded an apology and reparations. On September 6, 2019, the Korean A-bomb victims decided to pursue a people's tribunal and entrusted SPARC with managing the related procedures. In December 2019, the Korea Atomic Bomb Victim Association and SPARC, joined by 30 participating organizations as signatories, launched a joint international petition calling for South Korea to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, or TPNW. On June 7, 2023, the first international forum was held to prepare for the People's Tribunal, which established that the U.S. atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were illegal under the international laws as of 1945. In November 2023, 5 Korean A-bomb victims from both the first and second generations, including Lee and Korean civil society organizations such as SPARC, participated in the second Meeting of States Parties to the TPNW. They shared the voices of the Korean A-bomb victims and presented plans for the International People's Tribunal to hold the U.S. accountable for dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
제 나이는 원래 79입니다. 현재 생존해 있는 한국 생존자 실세는 약 1,800여 명 가운데 제가 제일 막내들입니다. 죽기 전 제일로 원하는 것은 소속 좋아하는 가족들 다 미안하다는 그 말입니다. 이 폭에 대한 원죄적 책임이 있는 미국이 1945년 핵 도하의 책임을 인정하고 사죄한다면 어느 나라도 핵무기를 발효할 생각을 못하게 되겠습니다. 이것이 입국자인 저희 소명이라고 생각했습니다. 국제 민중 법정에도 지원과 사죄를 부탁드립니다.
On June 8, 2024, the Second International Forum to prepare for the People's Tribunal was held in Hiroshima. The forum confirmed that the U.S. atomic bombings in 1945 were unlawful under current international law and highlighted the illegality of nuclear threats or deterrence policies. 80 years have passed since the atomic bomb was dropped. We will move forward one step at a time, bearing in mind the deep sorrow of the Korean A-bomb victims and praying for a Korean peninsula free from nuclear confrontation and a world free of nuclear weapons.
저는 한국 비폭 피해자 1세 박정순입니다. 1934년 일본 나고야에서 태어나 1945년 히로시마 원폭 당시 저는 나이는 12살 초등학교 5학년이었습니다. 저희 아버지는 지인의 소개로 일본 나고야에 있는 공장에서 일을 했습니다. 나고야에 있는 아버지를 따라 어머니와 나머지 가족은 1932년에 일본으로 건너갔습니다. 전쟁이 계속되면서 아버지가 다니던 공장에서는 더 이상 일을 하기가 어려워졌습니다. 1943년 아버지 혼자 먼저 히로시마로 갔습니다. 어머니와 함께 남은 가족들은 1945년 5월 히로시마 우치코시 쪽으로 이사를 갔습니다. 제가 간 그곳은 원자 폭탄 투하된 복심지에서 약 2km 떨어진 곳이었습니다. 1945년 8월 6일 여는 어느 날과 똑같이 아버지는 아침에 일찍 공장에 출근하고 어머니는 식당에 나가실 준비를 하고 또 저희 형제들은 모두 집안에 있었습니다. 공습 경비가 울렸지만 항상 잦은 공습 때문에 예사로 여겼었습니다. 그런데 갑자기 번개불처럼 눈부신 빛이 이었습니다. 비추더니만은 바람이 불고 온 세상이 진동하듯 폭음이 엄청나게 나더니 집 전체가 흔들리면서 한순간에 무너져 버렸습니다. 무너져 내린 천장과 기둥은 우리 가족을 덮쳤습니다. 울부짖는 비명소리와 필사로 기어 나오려는 아수라장 속에서 어머니는 자식들을 하나씩 꺼내주셨습니다. 저는 무너진 기둥으로 인해서 뒤통수가 부딪혀 깨지면서 머리에서 피가 나왔습니다. 허리도 함께 다치면서 평생 지금까지 허리 통증이 이어지고 있습니다. 나중에 엑스레이를 찍어보니 허리뼈가 어긋났다는 진단이 내렸습니다. 무너진 집 밖으로 나오니 동네 사람들이 소리 지르며 울부짖고 있었습니다. 길에는 쓰러진 사람, 죽는 사람, 화상을 입고 피를 흘리는 사람들이 있었습니다. 모두가 어디로 달리고 있었습니다. 우리 역시도 겨우 수습을 해가 동네 사람들과 같이 대나무 밭으로 향해서 달려갔습니다. 그곳에는 피해를 입은 이웃들이 모두 모였습니다. 히로시마 전체가 멸망되었다고 생각했습니다. 대나무밭에 모인 사람들 중 온전한 사람은 거의가 없었습니다. 피를 흘리며 아비 귀환 속에서도 살아남았다는 거에 조금이라도 안도를 하는 것 같았습니다. 저는 피폭 후유증 때문에 지금도 매일 침을 맞지 않으면 움직일 수가 없습니다. 저뿐만 아니라 동생도 당도암에 걸리고 심장병 등 병이 여러 가지 병이 들어 고생을 오래 했습니다. 아버지와 어머니 그리고 저와 제 자매 4명 모두 피폭 후유증으로 고통당했습니다. 피폭 당했다고 말하지도 못했습니다. 우리 자매들은 후손들 중에도 후유증을 의심할 증서를 보이고 있습니다. 어머니는 더한 통증을 겪으셨어도 자식들이 걱정할까봐 내색을 통 안 하시고 고생하시는 것이 너무 안타까웠습니다. 저는 그런 어머니를 보면서 죄스러워 병원에 한번 모시지 못했다는 것을 이제서야 한스러워 견딜 수가 없습니다. 정말 전쟁을 일으킨 일본이나 특히 히로시마와 나가사키에 원폭을 투하한 미국의 야만스러운 야욕이 한없이 원망스럽습니다. 미국의 원폭 투하 책임을 묻고 사죄를 받고 싶습니다. 더욱이 대량 살상의 무게 핵 피해를 당해본 저로서는 전 세계의 핵무기 금지를 부르짖고 아우성치고 싶습니다. 핵 경쟁의 끝은 곧 인류의 멸망입니다. 세계 평화를 갈망하며 우리 후손 대대로 핵무기 없는 평화로운 세상을 물려주는 것이 살아남은 원폭 피해자인 저로서는 저의 책무라고 생각합니다. 핵을 전쟁에 쓴다는 것은 그것은 불법이라고 낙인을 찍어야 됩니다. 미국이 사죄하고 배상을 해야만이 이 세상이 핵무기 없는 세상으로 변화가 된다는 거 명심하시고 미국의 책임을 꼭 묻고 부탁드립니다. 세계 평화를 위하여 미국이 사과하십시오. 보상하십시오.
핵 없는 세상을 위해 노력하시는 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 한국 원팩 패자는 패자 지원 문제를 논의하면서 반드시 고려해야 할 특별한 역사적, 정치적 상황에 놓여 있습니다. 미국이 히로시마와 나가사키에 토한 원자폭탄으로 10만 명이 넘는 한국인이 피폭되었습니다. 그러나 아직까지도 제대로 된 실태조사 한번 이루어지지 않아 도대체 얼마나 많은 한국인이 피해를 당했는지 알 수 없습니다. 한국 원폭 피해자 중 상당수는 일제강제동 피해자였습니다. 살아남아 고향에 돌아온 이들도 정부의 무관심과 사회의 냉대, 지독한 가난, 그리고 원폭 후유증으로 한평생을 고통 속에 살아 세상을 떠났습니다. 지금도 한국 정부는 피해자 지원 특별법에서 원폭 피해자 후손들을 배제하며 피해자들의 목소리를 전혀 귀를 기울이지 않고 있습니다. 저는 한국 원폭 피해자 협회 합춘 지부장으로서 우리 피해자들이 겪고 있는 도저히 말로 표현할 수 없는 고통을 20년 넘게 지켜보았습니다. 저는 묻고 싶습니다. 도대체 우리가 왜 이렇게 고통받으며 죽어가야만 합니까? 원폭이 퇴된 지 80년이 지났지만 미국과 일본 정부는 피해자들에게 단 한 번의 사죄나 배상을 하지 않았습니다. 피해자는 있는데 책임자는 지는 가해자가 없다는 것은 도저히 있을 수 없는 일입니다. 저는 피를 토하는 심정으로 요구합니다. 한국, 미국, 일본 정부는 피해자 지원을 위한 국제신탁기금에 참가하는 것은 물론 조속히 핵무기 기금 조약에 서명해야 됩니다. 핵무기가 존재한다는 것은 언제든 사용할 수 있고 우리와 같은 피해자가 또 발생할 수 있다는 것입니다. 그래서 우리 한국 원폭 피해자와 후손들은 지구상에 존재하는 모든 핵무기가 고철 덩어리가 될 때까지 핵무기를 반대할 것입니다. 1945년 미국의 불법적인 원폭 투하 책임을 묻기 위한 2026년 원폭 국제민중법정에도 많은 지원과 참여를 호소합니다. 함께 핵무기는 없는 평화를 만들어 갑시다. 감사합니다.
걱정에 함께합니다.
It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Ki-hoon from Spark. Thank you very much for giving us this valuable opportunity. If you have any questions about the video you just watched, please don't hesitate to ask. I will answer in Korean and Kare will kindly interpret for me.
Michelle raised her hand. Thanks, Michelle.
I think I will just start the question. So, I saw the Spark personally in New York this year as well. I'm really inspired with the movement that's going on with that. And there's so many there's so many of young people involved in this movement like Kihon. I think I'm curious, Kihon, what makes you inspired to support the hibakusha, Korean hibakushas in their tribunal? What's your motivation for it, and what will be your message to the young people to support, or how can they support the tribunal like what you're doing right now?
You wonder mine? 아, 하래님, 그 질문 짧게만 저한테
질문도
요약하면
통역할까요, 짧게?
네.
네. 미셸은 그 평통사 하는 활동 뉴욕에서도 만나서 들은 적 있는데, 대단하다고 생각했고, 그리고 특히 어떻게 많은 젊은 사람들이 함께 하게 된 이유 물었어요. 기훈님, 에 참여한 이유, 그리고 많은 젊은 사람들 어떻게 함께 참여하게 됐는지 그 질문이었어요.
네.
그리고 사람들 어떻게 함께 할 수 있냐고도 두 번째 질문이었어요.
네. 한 문장씩 얘기하겠습니다. 네. 저는 고등학생 때 그 스파크 활동가가 저희 학교에 와서 평화 교육을 해줬습니다.
So when I was in high school, Spark representatives came to my school for conducting peace education.
그때 한반도의 평화랑 통일 문제가 우리 한국 사회의 가장 중요한 문제구나 하는 것을 깨닫고 고등학교를 졸업한 직후부터 평통사 활동을 시작했습니다.
At that time, they shared about how the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula is a number one issue. And I realized that that would be a number one issue to be concerned about. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I joined as a member of Spark.
예, 스파크에는 저와 같은 청년 활동가들이 많이 있고요. 저희와 같이 이 한반도 평화통일 문제, 그리고 한국 원폭 피해자 문제, 그리고 피플스 트리뷰널 문제를 알리기 위해서 한국에 있는 고등학교, 대학교를 찾아가서 강의도 하는 그런 여러 가지 활동을 합니다.
So there are many other youth members of Spark, and some of our main issues are the peaceful reunification of Korea and also supporting the Korean hibakushas, victims of the nuclear bombings, and especially this People's Tribunal that you learned about in the video. And so our members go to schools to teach about these issues.
저를 포함해서 청년들이 한국 원폭 피해자 문제와 그 다음에 피플스 트리뷴럴 문제에 관심을 갖고 있는 이유는 현재 한반도가 가장 첨예한 핵전쟁 위기 속에 있기 때문입니다.
The reason that I and other members, especially youth members, are so concerned about the issue of the victims of the nuclear bombings and preparing for this tribunal is because of the threat of nuclear war.
그래서 한국에 있는 청년들은 민중겁정에 참여하는 것이 오늘날 우리가 할 수 있는 아주 중요한 일이다라는 생각을 하고 있고요. 그리고 또 한국뿐만 아니라 미체를 포함해서 일본, 미국 이런 청년들이 여러 이 민중겁정에 함께하고 있다고 마지막으로 말씀드리고 싶습니다.
So that's why I think it's so important to join and support this tribunal. And I want to share that it's not just the people in Korea, young people in Korea, who are involved in this campaign, but also people in Japan and the US are also supporting this People's Tribunal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kian. Your work are very, very inspiring in Spark.
I see DJ has a question.
Hi, I'm DJ, and I'd like to ask, how can you um, appeal for uh, others who may want to uh, do events that support your advocacy? How can they connect with you, and how uh, they can get on board in relation to the ongoing tribunal? I mean, for the project of the tribunal. Thank you.
다시 질문 통역할까요? Okay. So, 어떻게 사람들이 시민법정이나 그런 지지하는 행사들 참여할 수 있는지, 그리고 어떻게 응원할 수 있는지, 어떻게 연락하면 좋은지 물었어요.
네, 먼저 감사하다는 말씀 드리고요. 지금 채팅방에 조셉이 저희 민중법정 홈페이지 링크를 올렸습니다. 거기에 보시면은 정기적으로 저희 뉴스레터를 구독할 수 있게 되어 있습니다. 거기 구독해 주시면 저희 행사와 참여할 수 있는 방법을 자세하게 안내 드리겠다고 말씀드려 주시겠어요?
So you can see in the chat that Joseph just shared again the campaign site, website, and email address. And if you go into the site, you can subscribe to receive news about the People's Tribunal. And you can also then hear about events that are happening that you can join.
네, 그리고 평통사와 민중법정 보거나이징 커미티가 지금 온라인 컨퍼런스를 준비하고 있고, 그 다음에 더 직접적으로는 내년 11월에 뉴욕에서 DJ님을 봤으면 좋겠다고 마지막으로 말씀드려 주시겠어요?
So, especially two events that you should be aware of are an online conference that will be coming up soon. And also, maybe, hopefully, DJ, you can join the People's Tribunal when it happens next year in November in New York City.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
없으면은
Joseph
제가
has a hand
조셉
raised.
I'm wondering about how young Koreans feel about the long history of discrimination in Japan, and how, like, the hibakusha, there were the Japanese hibakusha, and they got a lot of attention, but the Korean hibakusha, or the Korean survivors, were ignored for decades. So I'm wondering, like, since Kihun is younger, if he could tell us about how young Koreans see, and how do they feel about Japan in general?
네, 제가 질문 이해했습니다. 네,
Okay.
말씀해 주신 것처럼 한국 공포 피해자는 다른 피폭자들과 다르게 일제 식민지배 피해자라는 그런 성격도 가지고 있습니다.
So one difference from other hibakusha is that the Korean hibakusha were also suffering from the occupation by Japan.
그리고 더 참혹한 것은 그 한국과 일본 사이의 문제가 아직까지 끝나지 않았다는 것입니다.
And also, the issues between Korea and Japan have not yet been resolved.
Right.
그래서 한국 원폭 피해자의 목소리를 전 세계에 알리고 한국 원폭 피해자에 대한 미국과 일본의 책임을 규명하는 일은 핵무기 없는 세상을 위한 일이기도 하고 한국과 일본 간의 역사적인 정의를 실현하는 문제이라고 저희 한국의 청년들은 생각하고 있습니다.
So young people in Korea think that it's important for the experience of the Korean hibakusha to be heard and understood by people around the world, and especially for them to be apologized to and recognized by Japan as well as the United States, and that there can be historical justice is an important issue that people are focusing on.
I see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
카렌님 그 시간이 됐죠? 네, 그러면
그러나
제가
우리 여유가 조금 있었어요.
그래요.
마무리할 이야기 있을까요?
네, 질문하실 분 더 없으시면 제가 짧게 인사만 드릴게요.
If there's no other questions, maybe we can ask Hyun to just share final comments. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you to you, everyone who is working towards peace and a world without nuclear weapons. I also kindly ask for your continued attention and participation in the A-bomb tribunal. And I hope we will meet next year, November in New York. Thank you.
Thank you. 고맙습니다.
고맙습니다. Thank you.
So I'm very thankful today that we could be joined by two representatives from Spark because this focus of the Peace Wave this year is recognizing the 80th anniversary of the use of nuclear bombs in war by the US against Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all of the people who were there. So I knew that this tribunal would be a very important way to understand the connection of Koreans to that history and the way that Korean people are continuing to pursue justice and work to make a world without nuclear weapons and war. Perhaps I should introduce myself briefly. I am American. I've been living in Korea for 12 years, and I would have liked to invite more people from peace movements in Korea to join today and give some more direct speeches and presentations, but I have not been feeling well and was not able to prepare as much as I had hoped to. But I have collected some photos and some important news from the peace movements in Korea over the past year. So I hope next year to involve more people who can share directly about the Korean experience in the peace wave. But I am hoping to at least share some of the stories as I have experienced and witnessed them here as part of the peace movement in Korea this last year. So I will share my presentation. So I can see here, maybe you can all see some maybe familiar image, especially the one on the top left. It's been the biggest news maybe from Korea in this past year has been the people's movements to stop martial law and to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, and then still in the process of holding former president accountable for his actions in attempting martial law, which threatened to be not only a war of the government against the citizens of Korea, but also potentially to draw Korea into broader war. And I shared a photo on the top right, also just as yesterday, to show where I am. I'm part of a peace movement against the Jeju Navy base on Jeju Island, South Korea. It's a Korean base that is used by the United States visiting forces, as well as a way that South Korea is supporting many different war exercises and preparations for war, which threaten the peace of Northeast Asia. So we have daily peace actions outside of the Navy base, and that photo there is from yesterday. So as I mentioned, the Yoon Suk-yeol administration has now been impeached, but it was a big shock to all of us living in Korea and those following the news from around the world when Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law on December 3rd of last year. And thankfully, now you can see a photo here from July 10th, just this week. Even though Yoon Suk-yeol had been in prison or detained and then released, he has now been detained again as the trials progress, where he is facing charges for treason and insurrection. And so I hope that everyone will continue to follow the news of what is happening with that trial. But now Korea has elected on June 3rd a new president, Lee Jae-myung, and so we have seen at least a big, clear result already in the short term. for stopping this attempt at martial law. And it's very clear that it's the people's response, ordinary citizens acting to prevent martial law and to support the rule of law and support the democratic processes, especially in the National Assembly. So here's one image. I'll also, after sharing my presentation, share some links, including the article that this image comes from. But this is one image of ordinary citizens trying to stop martial law vehicles and help their lawmakers to go into the National Assembly building in order to stop the martial law through the night of December 3rd into the early morning of December 4th. This is a photo from the rallies that we had every week. Also on Jeju Island, there were rallies across Korea. The biggest numbers were in Seoul, of course, but even here in Jeju Island, we had regular rallies with many people coming out into the streets to oppose martial law and to call for accountability. And one of the banners that we made, the peace movement on Jeju Island, said, "To prevent insurrection, start by building peace." So this was an important way to connect our peace movement to this problem of martial law. But I think many people may already be aware that the martial law declaration was preceded by attempts by Yoon Suk-yeol to try to instigate war with North Korea. And the threat of war is not only a threat if there was a war to break out, that threat of war is also a threat to democratic processes in Korea and around the world. And so we could see that the danger of war breaking out is also a danger for democracy in Korea. One recent news item. Can everybody see the text on the side? I may try to move my own video of myself because it's blocking it for me. The news story you see here, March 6th, there was a joint practice between South Korea and US military exercises, and it was a Korean Air Force mistake that they accidentally dropped 8 bombs on a civilian village. Thankfully, no one was killed, but 29 civilians and 14 soldiers were injured. And it's just another example of the danger of preparing for war is also having effects now, just because of these practices. Sorry about that. So just yesterday, there was a joint exercise between South Korea, the US, and Japan, and there were B-52H bombers, which are nuclear capable, which were involved. And this took place in the skies just south of Jeju Island. And these kind of drills are increasing more frequently and more integration of potential nuclear war preparations. And so that's a big concern that there are renewed preparations for nuclear war in this area. But people in Korea continue to call for peace in many ways. One important campaign has been a campaign to end the Korean War, since the Korean War was just ended temporarily with no formal treaty yet. So the campaigns to have a treaty to end the Korean War continue. And opposition to US bases in Korea also continue. I included just 2 photos here, but there are many other places with people's movements against the US bases in South Korea. And on the top one, you can see a protest against especially F-35 military jets and a new expanded Air Force Base, U.S. Air Force Base in Gunsan, or planned expansion of U.S. Air Force Base in Gunsan. And then there's a photo from a peace march in Pyeongtaek, which has the largest overseas U.S. military base. And you can see people from Women Cross DMZ who are visiting there this year on the 10th anniversary of their march or campaign when they met with people in North Korea directly and then crossed over the DMZ into the south, calling for peace in Korea by a more direct contact and bringing a lot of awareness to the continued division of Korea and the US role in that. So they were protesting outside of the biggest overseas US base, which is in Pyeongtaek, Korea, just this past May. And here are a few more photos from the peace movement that I'm involved in on Jeju Island. There's a Navy base in Gangjong Village. Despite the opposition of the local people, the base was constructed since it was first proposed in 2007 and completed in 2016, but there continues to be daily protests, and we are paying attention to how the base is being used, including a new mobile fleet command that is increasing the involvement of the South Korean military in military exercises, which are further away in greater reach away from Korean Peninsula. And the top photo is a photo that we took when there was a visiting US warship this past March. The USS Benfold was at the base for 4 days. And that has continued to be a sign that the US is hoping to continue using this base, even though it's nominally and the full-time station soldiers are from South Korea. Another thing I can't miss to mention of peace movement in South Korea this year has been the protests against genocide in Gaza and support for Palestine. And one link that I will share is a link to a campaign by people in Korea against the Korean arms manufacturer Hanwha, which has many ties to Israeli military. And so that campaign, I'll share more, but I'll just mention also that Hanwha is expanding many operations, including in Jeju Island, where they're also building up the space industry, which is a very militarized industry that we are very concerned about how space is being militarized more and more recently. Also, this is a photo from June 23rd. People gathered together to oppose attacks on Iran, very conscious of the threat of expanded war and the ways that these kind of actions threaten a much broader war. And so this is outside of the US Embassy. But I want to end on a hopeful note. Even though we see so many preparations for war and there's so much for us to stand up to oppose, when we gather together in events like the Peace Wave, and this photo here is from Peace for the Sea Camp, which we had at the end of August, beginning of September of last year in Gangjang on Jeju Island, bringing people together from many different parts of the world to call for peace, to share our stories together. We can encourage each other that there are other possibilities, that we can train for a peaceful world without war, without nuclear weapons. And one other campaign I'd like to briefly mention is this campaign, which is started by the Pacific Peace Network, to call for other countries, even if your own country, you just want to get out the news that there is such a campaign. Maybe some places they can choose to be neutral in order to prevent war between the US and China. So I will also share this link in the chat for another campaign of people who are cooperating together around the Pacific to call for peace. So I will stop there. It was a little bit longer presentation than I expected, but I hope that it was a good way to share a few different peace campaigns that are happening recently in South Korea. There are just a few minutes left for questions. I see and request for staying in touch. As I mentioned, I have some links that I can share. Let me go ahead and share those links. Let me know if you have any questions.
I think I don't see any raised hands, but if you have any questions for Kaya, maybe they're still processing it. Please send us the questions, and we'll also send it to Kaya afterwards. Or if you also have questions for Joseph regarding the part 3 Northeastern Asia, just send us a message in IPB, and we will share it with Kaya and Joseph, or just comment it. For those who are watching us live via social media, you can share it with us. So I think we have one question from Miss DJ before we end. Miss DJ?
Yes, we just want to flag that we want to get in touch with the peace movements in South Korea because our country is in the process of negotiating a visiting force agreement with South Korea. So, so hopefully we'll just ask our friends from IPB for your contact so that we can collaborate. Thanks so much.
Yes. It's good to see DJ here, as well as Cora, who have been involved in the last campaign I mentioned, the Pacific Peace Network. And so we are already in touch there, and I hope we can talk more in detail in the future.
Thank you, Kaya. Any final remarks from you before we close? Or Joseph, any final thoughts before we close this part 3 and pass the peace wave to the Philippines, to Southeast Asia?
You go first, Kaya.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and I hope that we can all pay more attention to continue to be inspired by ways that people in South Korea and in many parts of Northeast Asia are calling for peace, and that we can be inspired and join in solidarity together with them. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, and I would like to underline once again the fact that we are in an emergency situation, and so it's really time for people to step up, yeah, and cooperate together. We really need for human survival. We really need to set aside this discrimination in Japan. I've been sad that not many people have stood up against the bombing of Iran, and I'm really glad to see that Gensuikyo took a strong position on that. They had demonstrations all across the country, and they opposed the bombing of Iran. And it's glad to see Kaya also showed us some video. It sounds like people in South Korea are doing that. But anything that leads in the direction of nuclear war, we really have to stand up right now. And I think try something different, try new approaches, and let's have a good time. I also want to say let's it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of fun in this movement. It's great to be part of this exciting people on the right side of history. Yeah, I really appreciate everything that Michelle and these young people are doing in this really dark time. I mean, when I was back in the 1980s, there was nothing like this. So I'm really impressed with your ability, the young people, to stand
Thank
up.
you. Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Kaya. And I think part of our intergenerational approach in peace building, we just share the knowledge and keep the peace moving alive. Peace, keep the peace moving, keep the peace movement united and share the glimpse of hope with each other. So I think our next wave is ready and set. So I'd like to thank again Kaya, Joseph, and Spark, hi Rano and Kion for being with us today. So we're gonna move to our next peace wave. So we have to start the next wave. So gonna pass the peace wave to Southeast Asia. So just to end this, gonna stop the recording and stop the streaming and gonna start again for the part 4. Thank you, Kaya. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you to all Japanese and Korean viewers that we have today too.